Today, millions of visitors marvel at Paris's beauty each year. Few realize how close the city came to destruction in those fateful days of August 1944. Had General Dietrich von Choltitz followed Adolf Hitler's explicit orders, the Paris we know today simply wouldn't exist. The Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame, the Louvre, all would have been reduced to rubble, a fate that befell countless other European cities. Every bridge was rigged with explosives. Historic monuments were wired to blow. The entire infrastructure was set for annihilation. Over 2,000 years of irreplaceable history and culture stood on the brink of oblivion. Then came the phone call that would decide everything. On the line was Adolf Hitler himself, demanding to know, is Paris burning? This is the extraordinary true story of the Nazi commander who defied Hitler's direct orders, and why his fateful decision to spare the City of Light remains one of World War II's most fascinating moral enigmas. Was it an act of conscience by a man who found his humanity at the crucial moment? Or was it merely calculated survival by a cornered general? The truth may be even more complex, and the stakes could not have been higher. Dietrich von Choltitz was born November 9, 1894, into a Prussian military family. His career began in World War I, where he served as a lieutenant in the Royal Saxon Army on the Western Front. Like many career officers, he continued serving in Germany's Reichswehr during the interwar years, then transferred to the Wehrmacht when Hitler rose to power. By 1940, he was commanding the 16th Infantry Regiment during the invasion of the Netherlands. In Rotterdam, he participated in operations that devastated the city. The Rotterdam Blitz killed nearly 900 civilians and destroyed 25,000 homes. On August 7, 1944, Hitler summoned von Choltitz to his headquarters in East Prussia. The situation was dire for Nazi Germany. The Allies had landed at Normandy 2 months earlier. Soviet forces were advancing in the east, and now Paris, Hitler's most treasured conquest, was threatened. During this meeting, Hitler made his expectations brutally clear. Paris must be defended to the last man, and if it couldn't be held, it was to be utterly destroyed. Nothing of value would be left for the Allies. 2 days later, on August 9th, von Choltitz arrived in Paris as its new military governor, the city's final German commander. He established his headquarters at the luxurious Hotel Meurice on the Rue de Rivoli, a hotel so opulent it was known as the Hotel of Kings and Queens. By August 1944, Paris had endured 4 years of Nazi occupation. Food was scarce, with average Parisians surviving on just 900 calories per day. The Nazi regime had stripped the city of resources. Over 80,000 Parisian Jews had been deported to concentration camps, most never to return. But beneath the surface, resistance was growing. The approach of Allied forces had emboldened the French resistance, which was preparing for uprising. Von Choltitz quickly assessed his situation. He had approximately 20,000 German troops in the city, but they were poorly equipped, low on ammunition, and many were administrative personnel rather than combat soldiers. Meanwhile, Allied forces were rapidly approaching from the south and west. The American Third Army under General Patton had broken out of Normandy and was advancing at an astonishing pace. On August 23rd, the fateful order arrived by cable from Hitler's headquarters. The command was explicit: Paris must not fall into the enemy's hands, except as a field of ruins. The plan was comprehensive. German engineers had spent weeks preparing. All 45 bridges over the Seine were rigged with explosives. Key infrastructure, power plants, water facilities, communications, all wired to blow. Historic landmarks including Notre Dame, the Louvre, the Eiffel Tower, and Les Invalides were all targeted. According to later testimony, over 3 tons of explosives were placed in Notre Dame alone. Hitler's intent was clear. If Nazi Germany couldn't have Paris, no one would. The city would share the fate of Warsaw, Rotterdam, and countless towns across Europe. For von Choltitz, this was the moment everything changed. On August 15th, the Paris police went on strike. 4 days later, the French resistance launched a general insurrection. Barricades appeared across the city. French forces of the interior, the military arm of the resistance, engaged German troops in street fighting. Into this increasingly chaotic situation stepped an unlikely mediator, Swedish Consul General Raoul Nordling. Nordling began negotiations with von Choltitz, first securing the release of political prisoners, then pushing for a ceasefire with the resistance. Von Choltitz was caught in an impossible situation. Hitler demanded Paris be destroyed. The resistance was making it increasingly difficult to control the city, and Allied forces were rapidly approaching. By August 1944, Hitler had instituted the Sippenhaft policy, punishment of family members for a soldier's failures. Von Choltitz's wife and 3 children could face execution if he disobeyed orders. According to his later accounts, von Choltitz was deeply affected by the beauty of Paris. Unlike cities he'd helped destroy before, Paris represented something irreplaceable, the cultural heritage of Western civilization. Yet he faced an excruciating choice. His military oath demanded obedience. His family's safety depended on it. A lifetime of discipline compelled him to follow orders. But something had changed, whether from conscience, pragmatism, or a combination of both. Von Choltitz began to question his orders. In his memoir, von Choltitz later wrote, "If for this first time I disobeyed, it was because I knew Hitler was crazy." Many historians believe he recognized that Germany had already lost the war. His trusted subordinate, Colonel Hans J., later recalled their reaction to Hitler's demolition order. The scene merely underlined the madness of the medieval command. Von Choltitz began buying time. He sent false reports to Hitler's headquarters claiming demolition preparations were proceeding, while quietly ensuring key explosives remained undetonated. By August 24th, Allied forces were at the outskirts of Paris. General Philippe Leclerc's French 2nd Armored Division approached from the west, while the American 4th Infantry Division advanced from the south. Originally, Allied Supreme Commander Eisenhower had planned to bypass Paris, prioritizing the push toward Germany. But Charles de Gaulle, leader of the Free French, insisted Paris must be liberated, both for its symbolic importance and to prevent further bloodshed from the ongoing uprising. As Allied forces entered the city, French citizens poured into the streets in celebration. But the situation remained tense. German snipers still occupied strategic positions. At the Hotel Meurice, von Choltitz made his final decision. Rather than execute Hitler's scorched earth order, he would surrender the city intact. On August 25th, the Wehrmacht still had operational demolition charges on most major Paris bridges and monuments. At approximately 3:30 p.m. on August 25, 1944, von Choltitz surrendered to French forces at the Hotel Meurice. He was taken to the Prefecture of Police, where he signed the first surrender document. Later, he would sign the formal military surrender at Gare Montparnasse in the presence of General Leclerc. The infamous call came shortly after. Hitler, learning of the surrender, reportedly screamed into the telephone, "Is Paris burning?" His fury was matched only by his impotence. Paris was already lost. Allied engineers worked quickly to disarm the remaining explosives. The imminent destruction of one of the world's most beautiful cities had been averted. While some buildings sustained damage from the street fighting, the iconic structures and cultural heritage of Paris remained intact. The city that had inspired artists, writers, and thinkers for centuries would continue to do so. What would Paris, and European culture have lost if Hitler's destruction order had been carried out. The liberation of Paris became a symbol of hope in the darkest days of World War II. On August 26th, Charles de Gaulle led a victory march down the Champs-Élysées, even as German snipers fired on the crowd. Von Choltitz was first imprisoned at Trent Park near London, a special POW camp for high-ranking German officers, then later transferred to Camp Clinton in Mississippi. Secretly, Allied intelligence recorded the German officers' conversations. In these recorded discussions, von Choltitz admitted knowledge of Nazi atrocities, including mass killings of Jews in areas under his command. These revelations complicate any simple view of him as a moral hero. Released in 1947, von Choltitz returned to Germany. In 1951, he published his memoir, From Sevastopol to Paris, in which he portrayed himself as Paris's savior. His story inspired the best-selling book Is Paris Burning? And a star-studded 1966 film of the same name. Von Choltitz died that same year, just as his portrayal as the savior of Paris was cemented in popular culture. At his funeral, grateful French military officers came to pay respects to the man they believed had saved their capital. Yet the full truth is more complex. One fact remains: Paris survived when many other cities did not. Whether from conscience or calculation, von Choltitz did not carry out Hitler's order, sparing countless lives and priceless cultural treasures. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe for more.